This is Lesson 7, Properties of Matter, the final lesson from the Molecules and Atoms unit. In this lesson, we're going to review what students have observed from the crystals that they made in the previous lesson, compare those to the three-dimensional shapes that they made, and then move into a couple of other demonstrations of some other properties of matter. So you'll want to get the crystals that have had a chance to grow over the last few days. Have students continue to make observations. If they've already been writing observations, that's great. If they haven't been, this is a good time to do that. Have them look at the different substances they were using before and see if they can compare any of those crystal shapes to the shapes that they had made out of the cardstock. Again, remind students, anytime you're growing crystals, there are a lot of variables at play, and results can really differ from one time to another. You may have variations in temperature, humidity, different things that can really impact how that works. And remind students this is something that scientists face every day in the real world. It shouldn't be cause for frustration or concern. It's part of why we have collaborative learning. If one group's crystals didn't grow as well, they can make observations from another group's. After students have had a chance to collaborate, learn, and talk about their observations with each other, we're going to move on to the next part of the experiment, where we're going to look at properties of matter. And in this, students are going to see how heat and cool can affect the different states of matter. And you can talk about that. Talk about when things get very cold, what happens? They freeze or they go into a solid form. When things get very hot, they can melt and go into a liquid, or hot enough they can even go into a gas form. Students are going to demonstrate this and kind of see how both heat and cooling can go into play together. Each group will have a copper wire and 2 cups. So students are going to bend the wire and set it into the 2 cups. 1 cup with very cold water. To make a good temperature difference, you can add ice to that ahead of time. Then the students are going to get a little bit of the margarine. You'll want to make sure that what they're getting is some of the solid pieces, still room temperature so that it's not hard, but definitely make sure that they've got the solid bits and not just the liquid margarine. And they're going to put a few drops along that wire in between the 2 sides. And then the next thing that you'll do is add very hot water to the other side so that they can see the difference between how it's acting on the side with the cold water and the side with the hot water. If you don't have access to hot water in your classroom, remember that the kit does come with the kettle that you can use to warm your water as well. And again, the bigger temperature variation you have between the 2 sides, the faster they will be able to see the results, as that heat energy is transferred through the copper wire. It does take just a minute for that to happen. And they should see that on this side, closer to the hot water, some of that margarine is starting to melt. Talk about that the melting is it going from solid form to liquid form, but that we're not seeing that same change happen on the side that is in the cold water. If your temperature difference isn't enough at the beginning and this isn't quite working the way that you had planned on it, ask your students what's going on. Why do you think we didn't see the difference? What could we change? Have them come up with the ideas of either heating the water up a little bit more, cooling down the other side, and remind them again, this is what really happens in science. Things don't always happen exactly the way we expected the very first time. These are also great opportunities to use your predictive posters to really put that language of what they are expecting to see happen into those sentence frames and incorporate the Common Core state standards in using the language arts with the science. The last part of this lesson is going to have students experimenting with a non-Newtonian liquid. This is a fun substance for them to play with. You're going to give it to them already prepared without explaining what it is or how you made it. So it will just be in the cups, and you're going to let them know that this is a liquid that doesn't really follow all of the rules. When they get it, have them look at it and notice that it is behaving like a liquid. The molecules have spread so that it is filling the container that it's in, just like a liquid would do. Then have them experiment with it and play with it a little bit. Have them use the craft stick or their fingers to hit it. Stir it and feel how hard it is. And then have them hit it and notice that when it's moving around, it feels then more like a solid. The liquid doesn't just disperse. They can actually feel it turn into a solid underneath when they're hitting it. Depending on the amount of water you've put in, that may happen a little easier. You can experiment with the amount of liquid and cornstarch that you're using, and then they can continue to play with it and talk about how this does kind of bend the rules in that it's acting like a solid and acting like a liquid all at the same time. Thank you.